Hello friends, I am Dr. Amarjit Kaur. I am Professor of Accounting and Communication at the Department of Management, Gurugram University. I have about 30 years of experience in teaching and in industry. Have authored 8 books and 56 research papers so far, and I'm still learning in research as well as languages. So I'm very happy to be present here today to talk on 2 important things. One, paralinguistic communication, and then chromatic and chronomatic communication. So in the first half we are going to talk about paralinguistic communication. So I hope you would be with me for the next few minutes to learn paralinguistic communication. So if you can recall, in the last few sessions we have been talking about non-verbal communication only. We started with body language, then we covered kinesic communication, followed by proxemic communication, then we discussed in the last session haptic communication as well. And in this series we are going to now carry forward the 5th type of non-verbal communication, paralinguistic communication. And today in the second half we are going to take the last 2 categories or the branches of non-verbal communication, which is chromatic and chronomatic communication, right? So this is the flow of the talk today. So paralinguistic communication, the word is very meaningful, right? Paralinguistics. So there's a language and something parallel to language. Okay, so the communication by means other than words is known as paralanguage. So whatever we say, we use certain words. So it has to do with speech only. So it means we are talking only about spoken communication today in paralinguistic communication. So whatever effect of communication has over and above of the language itself, the lexical value of the message over and above, so that is known as paralanguage. Okay, so the message whichever we are communicating, we are certainly using certain words in the message. Thank you, for example. So we have thank you, there are 2 words in this message, but how do I pronounce and what tone I do use, what volume I use, what emotional expression I bring in my voice, in my speech, that is paralanguage. Okay, so means whatever we are using other than the language itself, which brings effect to the communication, is paralanguage communication or paralinguistic communication. So of course it is non-verbal, because that emotion, that volume, that tone, they are no verb, like there are no words we are using, right? It is over and above, it's supporting the words we are using. So it is over and above the words we are using. Okay, so that's why we call it as the language, the communication alongside of the language. So we are using any particular language, be it Hindi, be it English, be it Sanskrit, but whichever language we are using. So alongside that language, those words, so every language has certain phonics, right? So along with the language, whatever non-verbal cues we are giving in terms of voice, tone, texture, speed of the word, breathing, everything together is actually paralinguistic communication. Okay, so it is very important. There are studies which claim in the total message about 34% of the message is dependent, the effect of the message is dependent on the paralinguistic communication. So it's not that simple. So that's why we say message is only 10%, remaining is non-verbal. And this paralinguistic is also non-verbal communication, as I explained in the beginning itself. This is the 5th branch or 5th type of the non-verbal communication we are discussing today. So it's that much important. So it has been defined, the most important thing is in this, it's not that what you say, but the way you say, right? So what is my message is fine. It's not that important or what I am saying, but how I am saying, the way I am saying it is the part of this study, the paralinguistic communication. So it's that important. Okay, so paralinguistic communication is basically defined by many people, but Poetos in 1984, he said that paralanguage is the ever-present co-occurrent voice modification. So ever present, because whenever somebody speaks, there is some voice modification, right? Every single person or and even an animal, right? Whenever anybody is speaking, there's co-occurrent. So while speaking, there's something else is occurring. What is that? That is voice modification. Somebody is saying the same sorry like that, sorry. Another is saying sorry. Another is saying sorry. So there are a couple of ways to say sorry. There are a couple of ways to say thank you. The simplest way. And we do not, even the same person at different point of time would be, making a different sound. That is voice modification for the same word while dealing with different people or in different situations. So that's why this Poetos in 84, he said there's an ever-present co-occurrent voice modification or alternating independent sound of perfectly lexical value. Lexical value means the linguistic value. Whatever we are saying, it has a linguistic value. Okay, so alternating sound, which is an independent sound we are making. Sound, somebody will sound. So there are a couple of ways we all will pronounce a particular word, right? So there are few things which are not in our hand, like how our vocal cord is, sounding a word. But there are a couple of things which we really work at and we can change, we can consciously improve at or adopt a particular style of pronouncing few words or sentences. Okay, so it's an independent sound of perfectly lexical value. Lexical value, we all understand what I mean, right? It's the value of the word itself. So a word has its own value, right? The phonics, the linguistic value is there, but what independent sound which is co-occurring alongside of that linguistic value is basically the study of paralanguage, is known as paralinguistic communication. So studies say 34%, couple of studies says 40%, 39%. There are different claims in the literature, about the importance of paralinguistic communication. Now, the study of paralanguage is known as paralinguistic, as I said, and basically what we are studying in this, we are studying the vocal cues, right? The element of speech other than the words itself, other than the language itself. So we used to communicate the meaning of the message. So the meaning of message becomes more effective or ineffective, right? So it means these vocal cues or this paralinguistic communication does affect on the quality of the message. I mean, how it will be received or how it is being sent by a sender to the receiver, it does affect that. It's so important. So we are basically studying the vocal cues, the elements in our vocal, tone, texture, breathing, speed, time, different, in between the words, that is speed. Okay. So sometimes we define it as relating to non-phonic properties of the speech. So if we talk about only the language, for example, thank you is made of THA and thank you, YOU, thank you, right? So if we only study the language itself, the alphabets and conjunctions, punctuation, etc., then it is phonic, phonemic. But if we are studying, this vocal cues, then it is non-phonemic property of the speech we are making. So phonemic properties are including, they do involve only the phonics of the language or the word or the alphabets of the speech, whereas the non-phonemic is there we are talking about the vocal cues. So over and above the over and above those texts, those words, those alphabets, if we are studying the cues, that is what is paralinguistic communication. Now this paralanguage is also known, as I said, vocalics. So vocalics is the component of meta communication. The meta, the broader, the whole communication, the meta communication has, of course, the linguistic part in it, the lexical part in it. So that actually modifies the meaning or the emotion we are trying to convey, right? For times, if your son, your daughter at home, any children at home, any kid at home has done something wrong, you are trying to punish him or her. He is supposed to be saying to sorry. You made him convince or made her convince to say sorry, but that sorry, how that sorry comes out of his mouth, like how does he or she speak that word sorry, it modifies the meaning. Some kid would be politely, genuinely say sorry mama, sorry papa, right? Sorry. Another kid will say like this. So that distorts, that modifies the meaning of the message, right? At that moment, the parent know that my child had just said sorry because, he could see anger in the eyes, but he's actually not sorry. That sorry is not sorry actually. So the meaning of the word, we know sorry, the meaning of sorry is that somebody is apologetic. Somebody is actually, agreeing that he or she was not right at that point of time. But the way the message is communicated, the meaning is distorted, is modified, right? So we call these such techniques as, there are a couple of such techniques which happen: prosody, pitch, volume, your intonation. These are the few techniques which are vocal cues, which are vocalics, and which can actually modify the meaning of the message, right? Can make it more impactful, can lose the impact or effectiveness of the message, right? So that has to do with the paralinguistic communication. So this paralinguistic feature of language, they are very, very important. Of course, they are vital, they are very important, because we could understand with the help of this example, they can change the message completely, right? How do we pronounce with authority? Sometimes the same message is communicated with politeness. So that gives that somebody is sounding authoritative. Somebody is sounding very modest while communicating the same message. The other person may be sounding rude. Somebody may be sounding arrogant. The language, the statement was same. But how do we say that this guy, looking at a news anchor, looking at some serial, looking at some news, and some politician, some authority, somebody saying something on dais, on a public platform, how do people make different meaning, or how do people say he doesn't mean that, he was very rude, he was very, maybe he was not actually using a wrong word in a public platform. There was no such wrong language there used by the gentlemen or the women there, but it was simply these vocalics, this paralinguistic feature of the language he was using, that made it different, that made it sound different than the message he wanted to communicate or she wanted to communicate, right? So this is paralinguistic feature of the language itself. And it is always when we are speaking. It has not to do with the writing or written communication. Of course, the body language, the gesture, the facial expression, tone, pitch, voice, pitch of the voice, tone of the voice. They all are example of paralinguistic elements, paralinguistic features. I hope this is clear to you by this time that what is paralinguistic communication. Now we will talk about those cues. I will just name or list down those cues or the elements of paralinguistic communication. Pitch, as I said, is certainly one important cue of paralinguistic communication. The tone which we use, the pitch the very high pitch or low pitch. Somebody speaking with the high pitch or a low pitch, that tells the state of mind of a person. That tells how authoritative he or she is. That tells the emotions in the mind of that person. So the pitch does matter. Volume, volume, we all know what volume means while listening to music, while listening to or watching any TV serial, etc., etc. We increase or decrease the volume as per our need, right? So what was the volume of the person or the sender in the message? That is also one cue of paralinguistic. The rate, the speed. I am very, very sorry. I am very sorry. I am very sorry. So there were 3 different speeds I use. So speed, the rate at which one person speaks, that also tells us, or that also modifies the meaning of the message. Because we all breathe while we speak. Yes, that we all understand. Okay, so very natural, breathing is very natural body activity. Okay, human activity. So where do we breathe? For times he or she spoke breathless. He spoke without breathing. वो बिना सांस लिए बोला या बिना सांस लिए बोली, रुका ही नहीं, बिना सांस लिए बोला. वो इतनी स्पीड पे बोला कि breathe नहीं. You know that this is what we always talk. So basically, when do we breathe? When we stop, when we actually take that halt in our sentence. So how frequently I take that halt in my speech decides my speed. Everybody, but the same person may not be using the same speed all the time, right? That's true. You would be answering at a very fast pace or speed to your mom when she talks about food at home. But your speed of answering something to your boss will be little slow. You will be little slow consciously. But at home you may not be that slow. Your speed will be little fast. And with your friends it will be even faster. Just imagine, you're talking to your friends and you are so excited, you are just speaking at very fast speed rate. Yeah. That's also cue. That tells the state of mind of the person, the emotions of the person, the meaning of the message, that I'm very excited. I'm talking at speed. I'm very excited. I am talking with speed, but with the low, I am afraid. I am scared of. I am anxious. So that's how we take meaning, of a message, that he was very worried. He was very conscious. He was very anxious. How do we make that? This is actually paralinguistic communication. You are getting me right. Okay, articulation and pronunciation. How do we pronounce? How do we articulate? This is also cue, the very important element in paralinguistic communication. Somebody say something, but they are hesitant in speaking. Sometimes they are silent for some time and then they speak. They're speaking, then keeping silent and then speaking, right? So hesitant, silence, these are the things which we see while communication. So these are also cues or the elements of paralinguistic, because hesitation is modifying the message. Silence is even more stronger, element to modify the message. So these are the cues in paralinguistic communication. So in all, there are a couple of more which we just discussed so far. in all the features of paralinguistic communication can be jotted down and they are here in front of you. The pitch, the speed, the tempo, the loudness or the intensity of the voice, timbre in the voice, resonance in the voice, intonation, the vocal range, the syllabic duration, rhythm. These are the complete set of feature in paralinguistic communication. There are so many studies, there are a couple of studies on every single feature or the element of the paralinguistic communication. Since we are not paying attention, or we are not, this is not the linguistic or language class. We are discussing this under business communication, and we will discuss how paralinguistic is important in any business communication. So that's why I'm not getting into detail of these features. I'm just bringing that you all need to pay attention to these elements of your non-verbal communication or paralinguistic communication while talking to somebody. So what is the importance? Thus, the last part of this session is importance of paralinguistic communication. First of all, by this time, I think it is clear to you all that this gives hints regarding the speaker's mental health, the emotional state. So, one can actually develop mind reading ability in himself or herself if he or she pays attention on the paralinguistic communication. Those cues we just discussed, if you start reading those cues, you can be very, very good in interpreting what is in the mind of person. So how does it affect in business communication? What all roles we have in business, think about it. Marketing, HR role, finance role. HR people have to deal with people, they have to communicate difficult policy, difficult rules. Marketing people need to convince, in the sales, the people need to convince to the customer about a product or a service. So if you as a salesperson, as a sales head, sales executive can read the paralinguistics communication through the answers you are getting from the customer, you would know I should waste my time or not. I should spend more time in this conversation with this client I am dealing at this moment or not. That reading, that mind reading ability is if it is there in you, as especially in a salesperson, as especially in an HR guy, it really helps. Believe me or not, it helps in business communication. It helps in business processes. Right? So the use of pitch, pause, speed conveys that how good a speaker is. So if somebody is skillful in communication, it's a very important skill. Right? Communication skill is the most important skill, is desired by any office, any function of business. And if you are conscious about pitch, the pause, the speed, then certainly you can make a very important mark in the mind of people you are dealing, either it's your boss, your peers, whosoever you are dealing with. Right? Another important point is that it has a great enlightening value. As a vigilant listener, you can learn a lot from the speaker who is there on the other side, right? So it has enlightening value. This is what they claim, the literature claim, that paralinguistic communication can enlighten the mind of the speaker. And it really, in a business as well, in business communication, because those people who are good at making voice modification, because we are modifying our voice through these cues, paralinguistic cues. So if we can make that cue, those signals, then it's really, really useful as a listener as well. So another important point in body, another point is that what is the difference between body language and paralanguage? So body language we have discussed in detail. the study of gesture, facial expression, posture. The facial expression, it involves the eye movement, face, the movement of the muscle of your face, body posture, hand movement, head movement. We have actually spent the whole session on this, right? The nodding, yes or no, like this. So they all are my body language. If we study them, if we study the effect of gestures, facial expression, posture in communication, how does these elements, gesture, facial expression, hand movement, posture of the body, how do I sit? I sit like this, I sit like this, I sit like this, or this, I sit like this. These all are my body posture, right? How does my body posture communicate about my state of mind, my response, my my concern about the person who is speaking, my interest in the message, etc., etc. But this paralanguage is on the other way, it's non-lexical and non-phonemic properties of a speech, right? Non-phonemic, non-lexical components in a speech. So that's what is paralanguage, and body language of course is wider. So to conclude this session, you need to understand that how body language and the paralanguage both are important for you in business communication, because every day you have to present, you need to make presentation to your boss, to your peers, to your clients outside, to the government official. How do you communicate? How do you modify your message through paralanguage? That is important, and if we are conscious about this fact, we are certainly going to be more impactful in our communication. So friends, with this I would like to end up this session. Hope you understood what we discussed. Thank you very much.